All right, now it's time for today's seminar. And for today's seminar, we actually wanted to take a moment to discuss favorite teachers. Now, Jeff, when the show opens up, I normally introduce myself as your favorite teacher's favorite teacher. And I do that tongue in cheek. That comes from hip hop culture and this idea of being your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. And a lot of rappers have used that as a way of boasting about themselves. So tongue in cheek, I say I'm your favorite teacher's favorite teacher. But I thought it'd be nice for us to actually unpack a little bit about what it means to be one's favorite teacher and who our favorite teachers were growing up. So I'll start by talking just briefly about my favorite teacher, or who I think of when that question gets asked of me in terms of who my favorite teacher was. And it definitely goes straight to my 9th grade English teacher by the name of Mr. Murray. Now, he was my favorite teacher for a few reasons. One reason is that was the first teacher, and actually probably the only teacher I had K through 12 who actually gave me a lot of personal feedback and made me feel that I actually could do great things. So when I would submit essays in that class, his feedback to me was just remarkable in terms of making me feel like whoa, I'm actually pretty good at this. And when I was in 10th grade, I was failing my English class. I had a different teacher. I was failing on purpose. That's a whole nother story, but I was purposely getting an F in that class because I was highly upset at that teacher. And I was boycotting. I was like, whatever, I'm just not going to do anything in this class. And I would just sit there and not submit anything. That teacher, I guess, reached out to Mr. Murray and was asking for help. And Mr. Murray pulled me aside after school one day and sat me down and just asked me what was going on with me, what the problem was. And that simple, small ask was revolutionary to me, because nobody had ever pulled me aside. Nobody had ever really checked in with me in that kind of way. I was always the sort of invisible student who got good grades and didn't really speak much and usually sat in the back of the class. And, that was the first time I really felt that I was being seen directly by a teacher. I didn't give him an answer. I was just I don't know. But that really meant a lot. And that actually changed my trajectory in terms of getting myself together and getting through the challenges that I was having at that time in my life. And for that, I always think of Mr. Murray as the one that helped me get to where I got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a powerful story, powerful example of what it means to be seen as a child, right? So my story, in many ways, is actually very similar to yours.
You were failing 10th grade English too?
I was not failing 10th grade English, but my favorite teacher was my 5th grade teacher, and at that time, her name was Miss Rothstein. She either got divorced or got remarried or something. So her name now is Miss Starr. And I found out. So I was trying to find her before we shot this episode, and I was searching for Miss Rothstein, and I was like, oh man, she must have retired, whatever. I couldn't find her. And then it just hit me one day sitting at home that she had changed her name. So Miss Starr, Marty Starr, is teaching 1st grade now at the same school that I had her. I know she's moved to different schools, but she's back there and teaching 1st grade now. So I'm sure there's a wonderfully fortunate group of 1st graders at Capitol Hill Elementary in St. Paul, Minnesota. But when I knew her, Miss Rothstein was just an incredible teacher. And as a young person, I'm a pretty chill adult now, but as a young person, really up until high school, I was very hyper. I had a hard time sitting still in class. I had, teachers who thought I should be on medication or should be in special ed even. Right. And so my parents tried hard to make sure I teachers understood that I had parents who cared about me and that they, they weren't going to let me get railroaded by the system. Right. And also that I got teachers who could understand how to help channel my energy, right? And I was a smart kid, right? I was, I knew a lot of stuff. I could do a lot of stuff, but I also was, maybe sometimes a kid that might be hard to have in class. And what I really remember about Miss Rothstein's class is she was such a good teacher at helping to channel my strengths into things that could be successful in class. And so one thing that I remember in particular is there was a time we had this project, and I don't actually remember the details of the project, but I know what myself and a good friend of mine decided to do was not what the project asked us to do. We were having a lot of fun making board games for some reason at that point in school, and we would design these three-dimensional parts of it, and it was very fun. And she allowed us to do that, to make this board game and connect it to what we were trying to learn in class. And I just remember like that type of experience of being understood as a person and being understood as someone with something to offer, and someone who had a creative idea that wasn't trying to cause trouble, but just trying to like engage in a way that I could engage in that moment in time. And her ability to see that, to value that, to still keep in mind the, you know, the importance of the content and things we were, you know, I'm sure trying to learn at that point in time, but valuing who I was and the skills and strengths that I brought to the table. And I just remember also really feeling understood and seen in her class, and feeling like this is a teacher who gets me and who can help me. And that also happening at kind of a pivotal time in my life when, you know, when I was teetering on the edge of making some not very good choices for myself outside of school, and really seeing her as someone that was like, nope, this being a good student and being, you know, this like nerdy intellectual that I would become, that's a good thing, and let's cultivate that. And so, you know, I loved her class, and you know, certainly will always be grateful for that experience.
Yeah, and see, that's interesting in the sense that like I don't remember much about the class of my 9th grade English class with my favorite teacher. Like I don't have a lucid memory of making board games or anything like that necessarily, but that the reality of remembering him reeling me in and seeing me and realizing that like the path that I was choosing to take by failing that English class and basically like wavering away from the path that he thought I should be on, you know, that really meant the world to me, like seriously. And I think everybody watching this, you know, when they think about their favorite teacher, that's one of those questions where you could ask pretty much anybody out there and they've got an answer for you. You know, like whether they work in education or not, like they have an answer like, oh, Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so,